So I'm going to do my discussion board today on Henry Ford. The postbellum period in the United States was also known as the Gilded Age. The term the Gilded Age comes from a book that was co-authored by Mark Twain, and the name says a lot about the 1880s and 1890s in America. Something that is gilded is gold on the surface and yet worthless or rotten underneath. During the last 2 decades of the 19th century, famous captains of industry like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie accumulated vast fortunes. These were some of the United States' first billionaires, and at the time, they were some of the richest men in the country. It was a time in the United States history that was characterized by ambition, where wealth was consolidated through the operation of new technologies, novel corporations, and the arrangements of capital. The industrialists of the Gilded Age or postbellum period dominated the transportation systems, the natural resources like coal, iron, and oil, and the economic base of much of the nation. However, underneath that shiny golden surface of the vast fortunes of those like Carnegie, Rockefeller, and others, the workers in the steel mills and oil refineries and other places were living in abject poverty. Many of them lived in crowded tenements, worked very long hours, lived in dangerous conditions, or worked in dangerous conditions for low pay. According to Catherine Unterman, the average income for 11 million of the nation's 12 million families was about $380 annually, and unemployment was around 15%. But not all of the businessmen in America during this time period were the same. One man stood out from the rest, and that man was Henry Ford. Henry Ford was known as the car maker, the founder of Ford Motor Company, the pioneer of mass production, the inventor of the assembly line, and an innovator in business. Many consider him to be the world's greatest contribution to manufacturing. In 1908, Ford began production of the Ford Model T, the vehicle that became one of the most successful automobiles in the automobile industry. At the same time, he also implemented the large-scale use of the assembly line in order to better ensure that, according to Merrill Davids, not a moment dripped as detritus onto the floor. Basically, time was money. And the assembly line, along with the scientific management strategy, had, according to Matt Anderson, reduced the time required to build the Model T from 12 and a half hours to 93 minutes. But those gains in production had come at the expense of the employee worker satisfaction. Led to lateness, absenteeism, and to many of the workers eventually quitting their jobs. Now, the Ford Motor Company found itself with a crippling turnover rate of about 370%. That's a really large percent. A company can't produce without employees, and the current wages in the early years of the company couldn't compete with the tedium and the monotony of the assembly line. So in January of 1914, Ford, along with his vice president in the Ford Motor Company, revealed they would be doubling their workers' wages from $5 per day for 8 hours of work from the previous $2.50 per day, and would give the employees of the company a share of the profits from the 1914 profit year. Female workers would also be given an equal wage of $5 per day for 8 hours of work in 1916, which was an extremely novel idea at the time. Eventually, Ford would lead companies all over the United States in implementing the 5-day, 40-hour work week and a Monday through Friday working week, which would eventually also become standard practice. Ford also made sure that when his factories were being designed and built, they were designed with improved working conditions for his employees in mind. According to Nikola Tomac, the factories were designed using reinforced concrete constructions with huge windows and excellent electric lighting. Ford knew that to achieve a high capacity and productivity, as well as humane production, it was absolutely essential to have a clean, well-lighted, and well-ventilated factory. Ford claimed that every business that employs more than one man is a kind of partnership. It is a reciprocal relation. The boss is the partner of his worker is the partner of his boss. Along with the uh, electric lighting and huge windows, his floor plan was so that it allowed room for expansion. In an article published on the front page of the New York Times on January 5th, 1914, Ford stated that the movement toward the bettering of society must be universal, and his company can make a start and create an example for other employers. In this, Ford was a minority. Most factories weren't built with the workers in mind, but with high yields in production. Ford had a vision. His place as a scion of American business was secure. From humble origins, he would rise to be ranked seventh on the list of the richest men in the history of mankind. In the course of improving his workers' lives, he also improved his own bottom line. Better wages, along with more affordable goods produced by the assembly lines, are the cornerstones of the prosperity that has characterized American life for the past 100 plus years.